Ukraine is more than just a country at war, it sits at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. A land of fertile black soil, of wide rivers like the Dnipro, and of cities older than Moscow. For centuries, Ukraine has been caught between great empires, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Ottoman Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and of course Russia. This geography has made Ukraine both a prize and a battleground. To understand today's conflict, we must go back to where it all began. In the 9th century, a federation of Slavic tribes formed around Kyiv. It was called Kievan Rus. It was wealthy, powerful, and deeply influential. From here, Orthodox Christianity spread to the Slavic world. Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine all trace their cultural roots to this medieval state. But when the Mongols swept through in the 13th century, Kievan Rus collapsed. Ukraine drifted westward under Polish and Lithuanian rule. Moscow rose to power in the east. This divergence planted the seeds of two separate identities. By the 16th century, Ukraine was known for its Cossacks, fierce warriors of the steppe. They resisted Polish nobles, Ottoman raiders, and Russian expansion. To Ukrainians, the Cossacks symbolized freedom and defiance. But to Moscow, they were subjects to be controlled. The struggle over Ukraine's allegiance began centuries before modern borders existed. By the 18th century, most of Ukraine fell under Russian imperial rule. The fertile fields fed the empire. The ports of the Black Sea gave Russia access to global trade. But Russian rulers also imposed their language, culture, and laws. Ukrainian identity survived, but under pressure. This tension would only deepen in the 20th century. In 1922, Ukraine became one of the founding republics of the USSR. But independence came at a terrible cost. In 1932-33, Stalin's forced collectivization caused the Holodomor famine. Millions of Ukrainians starved. To this day, many call it a genocide. During World War II, Ukraine was devastated again. Nazi occupation left deep scars. After the war, the USSR rebuilt Ukraine as an industrial powerhouse. But Moscow still controlled its politics, language, and culture. The dream of full independence never disappeared. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Ukraine declared independence. It was now the second largest country in Europe. But independence came with a unique challenge. Ukraine inherited the world's third largest nuclear arsenal. In 1994, it agreed to give them up under the Budapest Memorandum. Russia, the US, and the UK promised to respect its borders. But history would test those promises. In 2004, Ukraine erupted in the Orange Revolution. Citizens protested election fraud and demanded democracy. 10 years later, in 2013, the Euromaidan movement began. Ukrainians took to the streets after their president rejected closer ties with the EU. The protests grew into a revolution. The government fell. Ukraine chose a Western path. But that decision triggered Russia's most dramatic move yet. In 2014, Russian troops seized Crimea, a swift annexation condemned worldwide. The same year, Russian-backed separatists rose in eastern Ukraine. War broke out in the Donbas. Thousands died. The Minsk agreements attempted peace. But the conflict never truly ended. It was the prelude to something far larger. Why does Russia care so much about Ukraine? Part of the answer is geography. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe, exporting grain worldwide. It has industrial hubs producing steel, coal, and machinery. And Crimea holds the naval base at Sevastopol, Russia's only warm water port. To Moscow, Ukraine is not just a neighbor, it's a buffer, a gateway, and a symbol of lost imperial power. But this is not just a local conflict. Ukraine's fight has drawn in the world. NATO expansion eastward alarms Russia. The EU sees Ukraine as part of Europe's democratic future. Pipelines carrying Russian gas cross Ukrainian soil, and Ukrainian grain feeds much of Africa and the Middle East. What happens in Ukraine affects global food, energy, and security. This war is also about identity. Russia claims Ukrainians and Russians are one people, but Ukrainians assert their independence, their own language, their own culture, their own destiny. Every bomb, every battle has only strengthened this resolve. But what comes next? Some predict a frozen conflict. Others believe negotiations might eventually bring peace, or the war could drag on for years. What's certain is this: Ukraine and Russia will remain bound by history, but also divided by visions of the future. This war did not begin in 2022. It is the latest chapter in a 1,000-year story, a story of empires, revolutions, and identities, of power, geography, and survival. Ukraine's struggle is not just about borders, it's about who decides the fate of nations, themselves or others, and its outcome will shape not only Eastern Europe, but the world.
Thanks for watching. This is 60-second knowledge now extended, because curiosity doesn't stop at 60 seconds. Subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok.